Is it possible to build faith in a creator? When I thought about the possibility of a creator, it made me angry to think that someone might have the power to prevent human suffering, but was not prepared to use it. Thus said one former atheist who lost family members in the Holocaust. He was hardly alone in feeling as he did. When faced with atrocities, many find it difficult to believe in God, or they seek solace in the idea that God does not exist. What are the major factors that cause some not to believe? Would humankind be better off, as some think, without God or religion? Is it possible for an atheist to build faith in a loving Creator? Religion's failure. Ironically, a leading cause of atheism is religion. Historian Alistair McGrath explains, "What propels people toward atheism is, above all, a sense of revulsion against the excesses and failures of organized religion. Religion is often seen as a factor behind wars and violence. An atheist and philosopher named Michel Onfray muses on how it is possible that the same religious book could inspire two types of men, one aspiring to saintliness, the other carrying out an act of inhuman cruelty." Many people have bitter memories of their involvement with religion. During his military service, Bertil, a young Swedish man, heard the army chaplain justifying violence by referring to Jesus' warning that those who took the sword would perish by the sword. The chaplain reasoned that there must be somebody to wield that sword, so the soldier must be a servant of God. Bernadette, whose father was killed in France during the Second World War, remembers feeling outraged by the words of the priest at the funeral of her 3-year-old cousin. "God has called this child to be an angel." Bernadette later gave birth to a disabled child, and she received no comfort from the church on that score either. Kieran, who grew up against the backdrop of the violence in Northern Ireland, was repulsed by the doctrine of hellfire. He used to declare that he hated any God responsible for such wickedness, and challenged God, if he existed, to strike him down. Kieran is not alone in his revulsion for such harsh church teachings. In fact, church dogma may have helped prepare the way for the theory of evolution. According to Alistair McGrath, it was Darwin's visceral distaste for the doctrine of hellfire, not his belief in evolution, that raised doubts in his mind about the existence of God. McGrath also notes Darwin's deep grief over the death of his daughter. For some, the practice of religion is synonymous with mindlessness and fanaticism. Irina, who was disgusted with empty religious sermons and repetitive litanies, relates, "It seemed to me that religious people did not think." Louis, repelled by the acts of barbarity perpetrated by religious fanatics, took a more radical position. "After showing me its boring face for years, religion now revealed to me its hideous face. I became aggressively opposed to all religion." Better off without God? Not surprisingly, then, many people view religion as an obstacle to human progress and peace. Some have even asked themselves if humankind would be better off without God and religion. However, would such a wholesale rejection of religious thinking bring its own problems? The 18th century philosopher Voltaire bitterly protested the abuses of the corrupt church of his time, yet he considered the existence of a supreme being to be fundamental to our moral sense. Later, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche famously proclaimed that God is dead, but he was afraid of the moral vacuum and the possible harm that might result from atheistic thinking. Were such fears justified? Author Keith Ward notes that as mankind entered the modern era, barbarism did not decrease, but instead reached heights never previously imaginable. Nor have experiments with atheism freed mankind from the failings of human nature, such as corruption and intolerance. These facts have led many thinking people, even atheists, to recognize the moral value of belief in God. Keith Ward highlights the beneficial influence of belief in God. Faith adds an insistent moral demand, a responsibility to care for the world that God has created. Numerous recent studies have indicated that there is an increased level of altruism among the religious. Altruism, in turn, tends to bring on a measure of satisfaction. Such findings reinforce the value of the principle set out by Jesus. There is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. Acts 20, verse 35.